Let's get started.
Welcome to the Financial Purpose Podcast. All opinions expressed by me or guests of the podcast are solely our own opinions and do not reflect the opinion of Life Moves Wealth Management. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for any investment decisions. Clients of Life Moves Wealth Management may maintain positions in the securities discussed in this podcast.
Hey, welcome to episode 49 of the Financial Purpose Podcast. 49. That means the next episode I'm going to have to bring like the 50, letters and streamers and whatever. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how I'm feeling that day, whether or not we do anything special. But anyway, we're not there yet. This is episode 49. And I got to tell you, man, this one was hard to come up with a topic that I felt was kind of worth talking about because I have been so unbelievably distracted over the past 2 weeks, and I'm going to bet some of you listening or watching probably have as well. And I thought about this over the weekend. I put what I'm going to talk about today is in a blog post at lifemoveswealth.com/blog, and you'll see it. It's called Mastering Focus, How to Avoid Daily Distractions. And I got to tell you, what I'm distracted by right now and what you're distracted by, these are not daily distractions. This is not just like work procrastination. This is not just like I'm bored, so I need to do something, or I'm just going to kill time and, enter the death scroll on Facebook. Like, we have some real serious stuff happening in our country. And I'm not sure how much of it really is any good. And it's become really challenging to stay focused and to stay on task. And this is really important because as a professional and certainly as a financial advisor, I have to be kind of the steady beacon because my clients need somebody who they can go, what do we do? And I have the calm hand at the wheel that says, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to pay attention to. This is what we need to keep track of. This is what we need to keep our sights on. This is the horizon. Look at the horizon. And I got to tell you, that's been really challenging lately. And if you think about just the last 2 weeks alone, all the things that have happened, starting with the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, and then you go to all of the fallout from that and all of the were there multiple shooters? Did stuff come from the water tower? Like, their conspiracy how in the world was a 20-year-old kid who, none of us knew him. Well, some people knew him, but I didn't know him. It looks like he really didn't know, what he was going to wear tomorrow or what he was wearing today. I mean, he didn't seem like he was quite, the mastermind that could outsmart the sharpest security agency in the world. And so you've got all that going on. And then you had, the president suddenly going, having a medical emergency of some sort, disappearing for 5 days, writing a letter, not on letterhead, not quite matching the signature that says that he's endorsing the vice president now to take over his ticket for the Democrat nomination. And all of that conspiracy went crazy. And then the director of the Secret Service testified in front of Congress Oversight Committee, and they, from both parties, gave her the due and just what for, and she didn't answer really any questions. I watched a good chunk of the hearing, and so that happened, and then she resigned, and then, the president came back, and then suddenly, Kamala Harris is the best thing since sliced bread, and all these crazy things are happening, and a lot of this is happening against the will of the American people, but we're being told that this is what's going to be good, and this is what's going to be right. And there's a couple of people playing kingmaker in the background with all of this stuff. And so it's just a mess. And it's been really, really hard to stay focused. And I'm not trying to go down the road of any conspiracies. That's not what my podcast is about. That's really not a whole lot of what I talk about, except on Friday nights. Sometimes on Friday nights with my group of guys, we plan Red Dawn and whatnot. That hopefully doesn't get us banned. I'm figuratively speaking, right? We talk about all this crazy stuff and try to like come up with our own, like, oh yeah, but what if? Oh yeah, but no, but have you thought about, whatever, that kind of thing. But here's the thing. I can do that with that group of guys because number one, it's a safe space. And number two, we know each other well enough where we can call each other on our bullshit theories, right? And that's really what that group is for. And so it's been really difficult as everyone in the country takes to social media to voice their opinions about this stuff. And you want to stay in the know and you want to know what's going on and hear all the things and think through all the things and go down a couple of weird rabbit holes and whatever. But all of that stuff becomes a real big distraction. And in the world of business and entrepreneurship and even just moving yourself forward as an adult, we have to be somewhat accountable. We have to be totally accountable, in fact, to what we allow to pull us off from the tasks and the things and the people and the time that really matter more and that are more important. Because there's this whole thing, Darren Hardy, in his book, The Compound Effect, which is one of my favorite books. If you've never read it, never heard of it, please go check it out. I love it. I listen to it probably on audio, listen to it probably once a year, every single year. And I have since I first read it, which was in 2011, I want to say. And it's a great book. A lot of what's in that book has been applied to my life, and it's led me to where I am today. But he talks about staying focused because there's a difference between your world, and I'm holding up my hands to make a small circle, your world, to the difference between that, your world, and the world, which is a much, much larger circle. Your world, the small circle, you can do a lot with that and a lot about that and a lot to that and a lot of influence and a lot of direct movement on what happens in your world. There's not a whole lot that you can do about the world and everything that's going out there. So we have to have some accountability for these distractions. And so I'm going to give 7 tips for how to kind of pull ourselves, myself included, which is why I say ourselves, pull ourselves out of these crazy distractions that are happening right now. And I got to tell you, if I'm a betting man, we've only just begun, baby. It's going to keep going, and it's probably going to get worse, and it's going to get more intense because we have between now and November to deal with all sorts of craziness. And possibly, if it's like the last election cycle, we'll deal with it past November as well. But that's where we are for now. And so, the one thing that I know to be true is that the ability to maintain focus is one of the highest competitive advantages that any of us have. So let's dive into the 7 tips, write them down. We'll put them in the show notes for you so that way you can quickly reference them from the podcast and see how you can use these. You don't have to use all of them. There's a couple of them that I'm really trying to pay attention to, especially number 4, which we'll get to. But that'll come in its time. Let's start with number 1. And the first is establish a daily routine. Tip number 1, establish a daily routine. So creating a structured daily routine is a great way to minimize distractions because it puts everything in its order, where you have to be, what you have to do, and, in what order you need to do them. It helps you control some of the external information that comes in and allows you to create dedicated blocks of time for handling things that are priorities and then things that need to just have a catch-all time slot. So one of the hardest things that I've found with having this kind of daily routine is part of the tip is to time block. And one of the biggest time sucks is email. And it's very difficult to only check emails at a very specific time. Now, I'm one of those people, have been working with email since the dawn of time because it feels now that we're this far down the road of the internet, like we've had email our entire lives. We haven't had email my entire life. If you're younger, you've only ever known the internet. I'm in that generation, that group of people where I fully, vividly remember life before computers were our mainstay and life before the internet was what we had to use for everything that we do on a daily basis. So I've always just, as long as I've been working behind a computer, I open my email program and it gets minimized or it sits in the background and I go do other things on the internet. I don't have the notifications pop up anymore. I used to. I don't have notifications that pop up anymore that tell me that there's a new message. Problematic, though, my phone does, and my phone sits on my desk, and I should probably fix that. But having only a block of time in a day, and I know people who do this really well. They check email between like 7 a.m. and 8 a.m., and if it's not there when they check it, it doesn't get a response. And maybe they'll check it later in the day, maybe they won't. I have a hard time with that just because of the nature of what I do, but probably as soon as I say that, I go, yeah, that's probably a crutch. I don't know if that's really that valid, but anyway, if you use tools to structure your day like calendars, or if you need something electronic like a Google Calendar or something like Trello, it'll give you your schedule and where you need to be next and what's going on. And if you stick to that schedule, you can build a pretty good habit of having real disciplined work. So that's tip number one. Establish a daily routine. And you can actually add in even time blocks for things like exercise and making sure that you're drinking enough water. You can have a little alarm that goes off to tell you to drink, 12 ounces of water or whatever your program is, or when you need to eat, or, who you need to call at what time, whatever. You can get as creative about that as you want. But having that schedule and routine can be very helpful in just making sure that you're staying structured. Tip number 2, set clear boundaries. And boundaries are very, very important because you have to be able to let the people around you know. And by the way, they should be able to let you know as well when you're working in structured time that needs to not be disturbed. And the biggest offender of this tip, boundaries, the biggest offender of boundaries, especially if you work on a team and especially in an office environment, is the, hey, got a minute? That pop in, number one, is never a minute. And number 2, it always subjects you to somebody else's priorities and somebody else's agenda. And most likely, whatever it is that's the most important thing to them that they need to interrupt you for is nowhere near a priority for you based on what you're working on at that period of time. So there are certain things you can do as a tip. You can consider setting up automated responses to email or to text messages. You can go on focus time on your text messages, or you can mute notifications and things like that during that focused work. Back before, at home, we have a little, it's kind of like an office. It's like a den. It's a really small room. And for as long as we've lived in the house, we've had one long desk in there that both my wife and I worked from, and some bookshelves with, all of our books and materials behind us. But now that we're functionally empty nesters, I moved my desk up to our loft, and that's where I do a fair bit of my work. And when I was down in the office, it was really easy to close that door. And during the pandemic, I bought a little sign like radio that says on air, and we clip that to the door when we're in focused work or in a meeting or on a Zoom call or something. So that way anybody passing through there knows, number one, don't open the door. And number 2, be quiet when you're passing through that area so it's not disturbing what we're working on. Well, now that I'm up in the loft, I can't do that as easily. But I probably ought to go get like a couple of cubicle walls and just put them there and then hang a sign that says, don't talk to me or something like that. But anyway, it's important to set those boundaries so that way you have your schedule time be your schedule time for what you need to work on, but then also create open time where those pop-in meetings or those, last minute things, or some of the conversations that you want to have, the water cooler things, the mess around time, that gets put into an open time block. So that way, number one, you still maintain your structure, as we talked about in tip number one. But then second, you're able to have time set aside for the things that are a lower priority without them interrupting what's more important. So setting clear boundaries, great tip. Number three, prioritize your tasks using the Eisenhower matrix, which is known as the urgent to important matrix. It helps you prioritize things based on what's urgent versus what's important. It can guide you on focusing time and attention earlier in the day on the things that are more crucial, so you don't get caught up in lower important or less significant tasks, which is kind of what we've been leading on the past two tips. And I'm a little old school personally with this. I still use the Franklin Covey day planner, with the 2 sheets. If you know what I'm talking about, sheet 1 has the time slots, and then you can have your task list, and then on the other sheet it's just a blank note page. I still use that, and I have since 2003. Earlier than that, I think, actually, I've been using one of these, probably 2002. Forever. And so the nice thing about the Franklin Covey is that it gives you kind of the ABC prioritized daily task with an A task. It means that it's something that has to be done today and as soon as possible. And a B task is something that probably should be done today, but it's a little bit lower priority. And a C task is something that needs to be completed, but it's not mission critical for today. And if it gets pushed off or delayed, it needs to show up on tomorrow's task, probably moved up to a B at that point. But you can kind of play with that based on what's important to you and kind of how the day goes. Because sometimes there are things that get pulled into your day, or pushed, I should say, into your day that you did not intend on, had nothing to do with you, especially if you're leading other people. You're really at the mercy sometimes of what is going on in their world and the things that you have to then stop what you're doing and go pick up and resolve for them or on their behalf or with them or something like that. And all sorts of just random stuff happens. A family member might get a flat tire or whatever. So there are things that pull you off your tasks that you can't plan for, but for the things you can. Another approach that you can do is you can divide tasks into 4 quadrants. You'll have on the top left things that are urgent and important. On the top right, urgent but not important. Or sorry, important but not urgent, right? Sorry. Top left, urgent and important. Top right, important, not urgent. Bottom left is urgent but not important. And then on the bottom right is going to be neither urgent nor important. And then you just focus on the tasks in the first 2 quadrants. Let the other ones kind of go, and maybe they can get graduated along the way as you move through your day and as you move through the task list. And for days that are more efficient, it's much easier to move some of those things out, get them all done. And then when you get them all done and you have a great, successful and productive day, then, maybe you kick your feet back around 3:00 in the morning and you move on to tip number 4, because you're going to be into tip number 4, which is limit social media use, especially throughout the day. Now, this is the reason why I have been so distracted over the past 2 weeks, because I am consuming news from every possible source that I can on everything that's going on right now. Everything from what's happening politically to what's happening geopolitically to what is coming out of the Fed to what the market is doing and how it's digesting all of the stuff that's coming at it from all points of the world to I didn't even mention the whole thing with the tech crash on Friday with CrowdStrike and Microsoft. I mean, that was a catastrophe. for a lot of things, and it was very expensive. We're starting to kind of start to get the numbers on the exact impact of that. I don't even know if Delta has recovered yet. I mean, they're just like, it's insane. So anyway, I'm pulling from as much as I can. And of course, right now, where most of the conversation is happening, where you can get different points of view, and now where you go to get your news. We used to joke about getting your news on Twitter, but now X, Twitter, whatever it is, that's where you get your news, because that's where everybody is broadcasting to. They're all the news channels and the newspapers and the blogs and the podcast and the everything. It all goes there first and then gets disseminated to the rest of us. So social media is becoming a source of constant distraction. Now, the problem here is that when you constantly check and you're constantly looking for updates, especially if you have notifications turned on. I turned off notifications for social media in like 2010, 2011. And I know you're like, that sounds like so long ago. Bro, I was on LinkedIn in 2007. I was on Twitter in 2008. I was on Facebook in 2008. Like, I'm old school. I was on, what was the one before it? Josh, help me out. What was it? MySpace. Yeah. I was on MySpace before that, barely. And the only reason I was there was because of the music stuff, right? But then it went, so whatever. So I turned off notifications a long time ago. Probably when I turned off notifications was during that 2011, 2012 election cycle, when that got kind of nasty with Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, if you remember. That's when I turned that off, and it was like, it's making me a crazy person. I don't need to get the notifications. So I turned those off. And that's important because that creates a lot of anxiety, and it does make you a crazy person. The longer that you're on any form of social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, even Instagram now. Instagram used to be nice. It was just like all pictures of like barns and flowers and shit. And now it's like, Anyway, and even TikTok is an abomination on the planet. It just is. It's horrible. Anyway, the longer that you're on those things, the more anxiety producing impact it has on your brain. It's just the constant dopamine. And I've watched people do this. Scroll, heart, scroll, heart, scroll, heart, scroll, heart, scroll, heart. And then all of a sudden, if those other people aren't scrolling and hearting your thing, then you get the anxiety because nobody likes what you're putting out, because you're not getting enough follows or you're not getting enough likes and nobody's subscribing and you're not getting any comments or whatever. That's anxiety producing too. So the whole thing just really gets kind of crazy. So the challenge is that posting to social media is a part of most businesses' marketing plan. Mine too. I post to social media frequently and often, and I use a scheduler to do it. That way I don't have to constantly open the platforms to put something out. I pre-schedule it. It goes a week in advance. I usually sit down on like a Saturday or Sunday. Sometimes I'm able to do it on a Friday afternoon, and I schedule out the next week of social media posts and let them go. And then throughout the week, I can respond to people who, post comments or whatever. Same thing with the podcast. The way that Josh and I do the podcast now, podcast gets recorded. It gets released on a schedule. The videos that go out, the shorts on YouTube, all of that goes out, that's all done on a schedule. So that way neither of us have to go in there and manually post things and go back and go back and go back. It just goes on a schedule. And so I've done the scheduling programs probably since about 2011. And they're really, really helpful. The one that I use most often, I've used a couple. I've used TweetDeck. I've used some other ones. The one that I go back to time and time again is Buffer. I even was using Buffer during that time period when they switched their logo to the Ukrainian flag, and it really pissed me off. But they've gone back to using their logo, and it's fine. The program works. It's great. Whatever. That's not a political statement. That's just a personal, like, if you're from Ukraine, cool. If you're not, don't do it. It's kind of like when everybody did the black square thing. Just don't be a follower. Don't be a sheep. Don't be a lemming. Don't do it, right? Let the kingmakers play kingmaker over there and think that they're important. We don't have to subscribe to that. It's our country. It's our life. It's our freedom. They don't get to tell us what to do with it, right? That's the whole point of being an American, and that's why it's beautiful. And go back to the last podcast episode where I talked about the beauty of the free market system. That's what it's all about. So anyway, see how distracted I just got on that? Oh my gosh. Like in the middle of the podcast about being distracted, I'm like going off on a tangent. Okay. So I've used scheduling systems. They save a lot of time. They save a lot of grief. Use tools like Hootsuite or Buffer or TweetDeck or whatever else is out there. There's a lot of them. If you just search your app store for social media scheduling software, you'll spend a day at least going through all of the options, and you'll very quickly identify which ones are better. Some of them are paid. Some of them, based on the number of accounts you have, charge more. A couple of them will allow you to do 1 or 2 accounts for free. Whatever you find, try it. If you're somebody who needs to post, especially if you're a business and you're running a marketing plan and you're not already using a scheduling system, you're about 10 years behind. So you might want to get on that, but it'll save you a lot of time. So you can do it for every single media platform, and you don't have to post live every time that you open social media. You really don't. Nobody needs it, right? It's not necessary. So anyway, use the schedulers. Limit your social media use. It's very helpful. This is the one, like I said, number 4, this is the one, limit social media use. This is the one that I've, for the past 2 weeks, had to really remind myself of, because I have so easily been caught down the road in death scrolling through X, looking at pictures, looking at videos, reading commentary, trying myself not to post crazy commentary because I don't want people to think that I'm a crazy person, because with the work that I do, it requires an awful lot of trust for somebody to decide to hire me. And one of the quickest things that erodes trust is somebody who has very strong opinions about things that may not align with what the person who needs to trust you to do aligns with. And so that can cause some conflict relationally early on, and it's just unnecessary. So I try not to post very strong opinions. However, given everything that's going on, there's a couple of things that I've put out there, and I'm sorry, not sorry, but sorry, that we just need to really be thinking about as rational people. And that gets exacerbated, and it gets harder and harder to avoid commenting on things when you're on social media too much. And so the thing I keep telling myself, because there's been a lot of things that I've started to reply to, and I type it out and I go, what? Not my brand, not my brand, not my brand, not my brand. Don't post it. It's not my brand. My wife in my ears, I remember from 10 years ago, do not engage. Do not engage. You don't have to reply. You don't have to say anything. You say it to me if you need to say something, or go find a friend. You don't need to engage. Don't say anything. And she's right. And I need to keep reminding myself. So maybe you can do the same thing. You don't have to respond to things, even if people call you and they tag you directly. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to respond. You don't have to defend. You don't have to go on offense. Be about your brand and make sure you're clear on what that is, especially if you're a business. Because there's a lot of businesses that have gotten in a lot of trouble over the past couple of years for allowing somebody to be loose-lipped on their brand's marketing channels. We don't need to be those people. Okay, that leads me to number 5. Stay informed, not overwhelmed. It's important to stay informed about what's happening in the world and what's happening in your industry. Probably more important to know what's happening in your industry than it is what's happening in the world, right? The big circle, the world. So you're going to want to set specific times to catch up on the news and stick to reputable sources to avoid a lot of misinformation. And I don't know how much misinformation you've come across, in the past couple of weeks. I've come across a lot of it. But it's crucial because news headlines, for what I do, heavily influence the financial markets and how they react. And so every day I receive just a barrage of news and newsletters, and I get put on the weirdest newsletters and random things. I'm sure you do too. And I just have to delete, unsubscribe, delete. And that's my current mission, is paring down the number of sources that come into my inbox on a daily basis, because the more things that come in, the more distracted I get, which leads me back to point number 4. Number 5, I need to stay informed but not overwhelmed. So find something that works for you. I would strongly encourage you to try to find something that's non-biased about anything, if you can find something as vanilla as that. But you don't need people who are going to pull you in one direction or down one road because it's heavily biased to one specific direction or another. Back in the day, we used to do this with RSS feeds. Now it's really easy to do this in other ways. You can get concise updates on things without having to take too much time or too much mental energy to decide, is it the truth? And is what they're saying fair, right? I'm going down the road of the 4-way test of Rotary, right? Number 1, is it the truth? Number 2, is it fair to all concerned? Number 3, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And number 4, will it benefit all concerned? Or will it be beneficial to all concerned, is the way it's written. If whatever you're seeing doesn't pass those 4 things, get rid of it. And if what you're about to say doesn't pass those 4 things, get rid of it, right? And so, there's a lot of acronyms and good wisdom. I remember a long time ago, I was in a sales training course. This was probably 15 years ago. And the facilitator said, hey, when you're on your way to meet with somebody, and you need to listen to the radio, if you're like a music kind of person, put on the classical station and turn the volume down. Just so that way you have something that isn't going to pull your brain into places it doesn't need to go. Don't listen to rock music because it gets you all amped up. Don't listen to rap music because it gets you too relaxed or bouncy or whatever. And that might be weird for whoever you're going to see. Don't listen to talk radio because it's going to get you all fired up, and then your brain's not going to be working properly. Right? There's a lot of things. There's the THINK acronym, which is, I got to remember this one. Is it true? Is it helpful? Is it important? Is it necessary? And is it kind? And if it's none of those things, don't say it. Or if it's none of those things, delete it out of your inbox, right? So whatever you find, use some kind of filter for yourself so that way you know what's coming in is going to be good for you, good for your brain, good for your clients, and the next person that you interact with. My personal favorite that I've been subscribed to for a couple of years now is called Morning Brew. There's a link in the blog post that you can click on. It's my subscriber link. I don't think I get anything. I think it's like if I get a certain number of subscribers, they send me like a coffee mug or something. I don't know, whatever it is. But click that link. You can get subscribed right to the email, and it's great because you get doses of what's happening in the world, what's happening in the markets, what's happening in the social world, and Hollywood and tech and business, and it's kind of just a real quick run through, and you get a little bit of humor and sarcasm baked into the news stories, and it makes it really easy, bite-sized stuff to read. And then if you want to explore it further, there's always a link where you can click into it. So I like the Morning Brew. Definitely check it out. Again, go to lifemoveswealth.com/blog. Look for the most recent one called Mastering Focus, and click the link there in point number 5, which is stay informed, not overwhelmed. Moving along to tip number 6, create a productive workspace. The environment that you work in significantly impacts your ability to focus. You're going to want to create a workspace that's free from all of the distractions. It's conducive to productivity. It's comfortable. Your desk is at the right height. Your chair's at the right height. You can stand, you can sit, whatever works for you. Some people work really well behind a messy desk. I do not, because it just freaks me out to have paper everywhere, and it's stressful because then I'm not sure what to do next. I like a clean, good workspace, adequate lighting. I like natural lighting in my workspace. I don't like the overhead lights. I don't like a lot of LED stuff. I don't like that stuff. If I can just have the sun shine in and the lights in the room are off, that is perfect. I love it. It's great for my eyes. It's great for my mood. I enjoy it. So I also like a light breeze, like a little fan going in the background or overhead. Like my good buddy Josh put a fan over here to my left that you can't see, but I can feel. And oh, baby, it really just like makes me feel good. So anyway, that's what I like. And if I'm doing good analytical work, which a fair bit of my day tips into analytical work, I like a little bit of music at a low volume. And for some reason, for me, because of the way that I'm wired, music, as soon as I turn it on, it's like my brain goes to productive mode. I don't know what it is. It's weird. You turn the music off, and it's not quite the same. So whatever it is that gets you ticking in the right direction and productive, do it. And that should be your workspace. It's going to make you more productive. It's going to remove some of those distractions, and you'll be well on your way throughout the day. And if you don't work at a desk, if you're out in a shop or if you're out in the field or whatever, your toolbox, your vehicle, whatever it is, wherever you spend a good chunk of your time, set that thing up to where it's helpful to you, it's productive to you. It's just the way you like it. It's not really messy. I'm of the mind, speaking of people who are in their cars a lot, I can tell a lot about a person by the way that they keep their car and how clean or how not clean it is. I can tell a lot about it. It's kind of like I can tell a lot about you by the way you shake my hand. I just can pick up on that. So anyway, for what it's worth, keep your car clean. It looks nicer, right? Especially if you have to give somebody a ride. It's not as embarrassing. Okay. Tip number 7, final tip, develop a strong support system. And here's what I mean by that. In business, especially in business, it takes a lot of networking, and you have to know people to get stuff done. And you need good other professionals that you can refer clients to or that you can bring in to certain situations to help you get things accomplished or move the needle for people that you work with or work for. And you're going to want people who are right for those things. I've done a lot of networking in my career, and certainly when I moved here to the Phoenix area, it was August of 2019. 5 years next week. Crazy how fast that's gone. I did a lot of networking right away, and then that damn pandemic happened, and then the networking all went online, and it got worse. Not the pandemic, the networking got worse because everybody was in their pajamas and they didn't have to go anywhere. And so the bar got lowered and nobody had to be really all that sharp or whatever. And there were a couple of groups that were led by people who were really trying to up the ante and keep people's mindset focused. I did one for the first couple of years, probably a year and a half. I was an active participant. I think it's still going. At that time, it was called Coaching Through Corona, and it was led locally by someone I knew. And Dave did a great job of keeping everybody focused on how we were going to move forward, what we were doing for our businesses, how we were continuing to stay sharp for clients, how we were controlling our mindset, all of those things. And so David Hepburn is his name. David, if you're listening, thanks for putting that together. David and I did a mentorship for probably another 9 months in the middle of that. And some of those people were really, really helpful through that period of time. But I will tell you, I attended some other ones, and they were just total crap. And I've also attended some networking in person. It's just total crap. And typically what's going to happen is you're going to walk into a room, and the first person that sees you, hey, what do? You start explaining, hey, by the way, I can help your clients. Here's my card. That's not the room you want to be in. right? Because that's not the only person in that room who's doing that. So you want to, number one, make sure you're in the right room with the right people. And number two, you want to have mentors and you want to have people that you can go to. And I've had a couple of really great mentors over the past 20, 25 years. And even before then, I mean, I had just starting my career, a guy named Randy Flanagan was my branch manager. I learned so much from that guy. Like, it's insane. And then I had a guy by the name of Tim Stevens, who is a very well-known mentor for church leaders. We had about a year-long mentorship, and I've had several other people along the way who have been just instrumental. The biggest one that I've had for the longest time is my good friend Bud. And we talk every Saturday morning, and we've done this since probably 2013. So we're on 11 years now, and we do, coming from Darren Hardy's book, The Compound Effect, we do a peak performance call. And we talk about our wins, our losses, our fixes, and our ahas from the week before. And we hold each other accountable to what we say our fixes are going to be, because somewhere in there we had a good win. And so we want to know what drove the win. We had a loss, what drove the loss, how we're going to fix that thing. And then what did we discover? What did we learn? What did we observe in the week that was helpful or that meant something or that guided us? And then what we're going to do the next week, and we write it all down, and it's great. And those calls with Bud are largely responsible for where I am today as well. And it's so cool because recently all my guy friends got to meet Bud, and I mean, they've heard about him over the past couple of years. And so Bud came out from Chicago for Melissa's birthday party, and it was kind of cool to have all of my people in the same room. That was fun. But anyway, a tip on how to do this, if you don't have any of this in your life currently, join groups of entrepreneurs and other business leaders. I personally think that people who are working to solve the same problem that you're working to solve can be some of the best ways or to do this, the best people to do this with. I have a group of people here locally. We, for no lack of creativity, we call it the Exit Collective. And there's a group of about 8 or 9, 10 of us. We get together once a month. We sit down, we have coffee, and we each share how we're intersecting the world of helping business owners successfully monetize and run their businesses. And so these are people who are working with the same kind of people that I work with and the same kind of people that I want to work with, and vice versa. And that works really, really well because we're all moving the same direction, and they're all high caliber people. And that's what you want. Again, make sure you're in the right room with the right people. You're surrounding yourself with good train of thought. You're structuring how that works. It's dedicated time. And you really want to get with people who are going where you're going, or even better, in a mentor role. And it's helpful to have mentors. Work with somebody who has already been where you're trying to go. It's no different than hiring a Sherpa if you're going to climb Mount Kilimanjaro or Everest or any of those other things, or having a guide when you're going fishing, if you're tournament fishing, or having a trainer if you're trying to get in shape or prepare for some sort of an event like a marathon or a cycling race or something like that. Have somebody who knows the road that you're walking on, because they'll be incredibly helpful to you. And lastly, and most important, do not network with people who are takers and who are shameless salespeople who are only there for the leads. They will not help you. You cannot help them. Don't waste your time there. So those are the 7 tips. I would say, just kind of as we wrap up, the thing that's important about those is they all are going to constantly need to be adjusted and reviewed and revisited. And sometimes one of those is going to be more important for how you move through your day than the other ones. Some of them, maybe you don't have a problem with social media. Maybe you don't even care. Maybe you're not even on social media, and so it's not even a factor. So number 4 for you, number 4 for me is a stumbling block at the moment. Number 4 for you may not even matter, and that's fine. However these apply to you, just apply them, adjust them, structure yourself around how they work, and you may need to just continue to adjust them as you grow, as your business grows, as your day changes, as your team gets bigger, whatever it is. Like I said earlier, the ability to be able to focus and concentrate, it's not just a great skill, but it is a huge competitive advantage in a world that's just full of distractions and barrages of information and all sorts of things like that. So again, if you found any of these to be helpful, if you currently use any of these 7 tips, drop a comment, share this episode with your friends. If you've got somebody who you're like, dude, get off social media, send this episode to them and just be like, hey, this guy struggles with this too. Here's something you might want to consider. Whatever's helpful to you and whatever's helpful to those that you care about, send it to them. Share the episode, like it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the podcast, and keep on coming back, because next time is episode 50 and we might just have a little bit of a party. I really don't know. But anyway, that's what I have for you this week. And thanks for listening through my distraction. Good luck to you. And we'll see you in the next episode. Go be financially awesome. See ya.
Thanks for listening to this episode. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share. To learn more about your financial purpose, visit lifemoveswealth.com.